name is Tim Cartmell. I'd like to thank you for buying our tape. This tape is on Qina. It's the Chinese art of leverage. The techniques come from this book by this gentleman, Jiao Dayuan, who teaches hand-to-hand combat at the Beijing Police Officers Academy. This is a very good book. If you want any further reference material, I strongly recommend this book. Besides the information in this book, I'm going to add some extra techniques, some variations, some different ways to set the techniques up, and some different follow-ups. I hope you enjoy the tape. Thank you. All right, first let's talk about the definition and the different types of Qina. Qi means to lock, so it's referring to locking the opponent's joints up for various holds and leverages. Na means to seize. Na refers to grabbing someone on pressure points or blood vessels or choking. It also refers to striking vital areas of the body. So the art principally involves strikes to vital areas, locking up the bones, and then subsequent follow-ups like throwing. You use Qina in conjunction with the striking and throwing arts. There are three ways to practice Qina. The first is called passive. Passive Qina is when the opponent grabs me. For example, he grabs my wrist, he grabs my lapel, he's got me in a hold. It's passive because he's not moving. He's already still. He has at least one hand stuck to my body. All right? The next level is active Qina. Active Qina is when we start at a distance and my opponent attacks me, and I try to go straight into my technique. It's a little bit more difficult. Most of the techniques on this tape are from active Qina, a little bit higher level. Any technique that I do from a blow or a kick can also be done from a grab, and you can do that on your own. The third type of practice is with weapons, and that's beyond the scope of this tape. We're not going to do that. Some advantages of Qina are, Qina is used at close range. Most fights, unless you knock the person out immediately, get into the grappling range. So it's the last chance you're going to have to take your opponent before you end up falling on the ground and wrestling. So it's very useful in the grappling range. Qina techniques can be used to control an opponent without actually hurting him. You can lock his bones up and hold him down without doing much damage. On the other hand, if you want to apply more pain or damage to the opponent, they can be quite devastating. You can destroy joints, you can hold them immobile while you strike them, so it can go either way. You learn also to control your body, your own body, as well as the opponent's body. So the skills, the attributes that you develop during Qina practice carry over into the striking and kicking and throwing arts as well. You learn how to control the opponent's body center and his limbs, so they apply to the other arts. When you practice Qina, another advantage is you don't have to pull the technique per se. You don't have to put pads on and hit or pull your punches. You do the techniques just like you're going to do them in the street. The only difference being you stop when the opponent feels pain or he's locked. You just don't apply too much force. But you can practice, you'll have a very good feedback when you do the technique because the opponent will be locked or not. He'll go down or not. You'll know if it works or not. So it's a very realistic mirror of your level of skill. Qina also is not based on using brute force. You don't have to be big and strong to do the techniques. A big person's joints will lock just as easily as a small person's joints if you do the techniques correctly. So smaller people can overcome larger people. You can lock and throw someone that you probably have a hard time striking or kicking if they're a lot bigger and stronger than you. So those are several of the advantages. Thank you. Now let's talk about the basic principles of the techniques and the anatomy. The first and probably most important rule is called non-opposition of force. I never want to use force against force. I always assume my opponent is stronger than me. So all these techniques are based on getting a superior angle and superior leverage to apply them. When you're practicing, if you're trying a technique and it's not working and you're using force, it's not working. You want to figure out why it's not working or change. You don't want to add energy to something that's not working anyway. So remember that when you practice, you don't want to use any force on the opponent. They should be very, very easy to do. Okay. Let's talk about the joints. When you're doing a joint lock, usually you're going to twist or bend various joints at about a 45-degree angle. That usually it's going to be along two axes at once. For example, if I turn Glenn's wrist this way on this axis, it's the way his wrist and forearm move. If I bend his wrist up and down this way, it's the way it naturally goes. But if I pull it at 45 degrees, it immediately locks into his center. Okay? So most of the techniques I'm going to make reference often to moving a joint around two axes at once. And that's what I'm talking about. Usually it boils down to going at a 45-degree angle, not straight or around this axis. Okay. Twisting a joint has the added benefit that the joints are very resilient along the axis they're supposed to move on. they have very, very little resistance when they're turned off those axes. So besides the fact that it locks his bones up quicker, it hurts more. You can do more damage. When you're doing locking techniques, the idea though is not to just to cause pain. A pain hold might hurt, but if the opponent's bones aren't locked, he can still follow up or hit you back or get away. For example, if I grab Glenn's wrist here and I twist it really hard, it might hurt, but he can still hit me. His hands are free, he can move his feet. A good technique, pain is secondary. If it hurts him, all the better. But the goal of the technique is to lock him into his center, his hips. Once you lock into someone's hips, it takes his base out. Now Glenn can't hit me. Now this might not necessarily hurt, but he's locked. Now I can follow up or pin him or hit him. That's the idea. So when you're practicing with your partner, you're training, the question to ask is not does it hurt. The question to ask is, are you locked? Can you move? Can you escape? If he can't, it's a good technique. If it just hurts and he can still move around, it's a bad technique. You're not controlling his center. The way you control the center from a joint is called sequential locking. Or chain locking. You lock from one joint to the next joint to the next joint, all the way down through into his hips. So, for example, if I twist Glenn's wrist far enough, it starts to turn his forearm bones, that locks into his humerus, that locks into his shoulder, down his spine, and all the way to his hips. That's how it's going to work. So, twisting your wrist outward, inward, pressing on his elbows, and the lower half is the same. You have to lock into the center. We'll talk about that a lot more when we do the techniques. Sometimes you get what we call a partial lock. You'll lock up the top half of his body, but not the bottom half. Then you bring your legs into play. For example, if I have Glenn's arm in this kind of position, I have a pretty good lock on his upper body, but he can still move his feet. He can get out of it. Okay? So what I need to do is, as I'm locking the top, I use my leg to lock the bottom and move his base. Now his hips are locked from above and below, and he can't move at all. So oftentimes, we'll talk about using your legs to destroy his base. Okay? Locking from above and below. Another important principle of Chi-Na are levers. Chi-Na techniques primarily use first and second class levers. A first class lever is like a seesaw. So, for example, if I'm going to do an arm bar, an arm break on Glenn, I pull here, here's the fulcrum of my arm here. The farther down the forearm I get, the longer here, the more leverage I get. So obviously if I grab Glenn by the forearm and push here, I get no effect at all. There's no lever. But if I grab him down the lever, a little bit of force has a big effect on his body. So we're going to talk about those levers and getting the longest force arm that we can get when we apply our force. Second class levers are like a wheelbarrow. So for an example here, if Glenn's here, say I want to pull him over backwards. If his heels are the fulcrum, his entire body is a lever. The farther up that I pull backwards, the easier it will be for me to pull him down. If I pull Glenn from his knees, it's going to be very hard. The higher up I get, the easier it'll be. If I pull Glenn from his forehead, it's easier to throw him down. Okay? So we'll talk about that during the techniques. I just want you to be familiar with the terminology. We're going to talk about getting on the end of his levers when we do techniques. All right. Remember, when you're practicing, not to use brute force, always try to lock his skeletal structure. Okay? And control him from wherever your point of application is, all the way into his hips. Joints are usually bent at 45-degree angles around two axes, and we're going to use correct leverage, meaning the right angle and get far down the lever on. Now let's talk about the posture, your own posture. Since we're not using brute force and tension, our power is going to come from correct alignment and using our bodies in the correct anatomical alignment with relaxation. So, first of all, you want to maintain relaxation at all times. You want to stay completely relaxed. You don't want to tense up any muscles anywhere in your body. When you tense up, you're going to be slower and you're going to hold your power back. And also, if you're tense, you're going to give the opponent a handle to your own center. For example, if my arm's tense and Glenn grabs my wrist, I'm like a statue now, and he pulls me, I immediately lose my entire balance. If I stay relaxed and Glenn pulls, then I have a lot of play here and I can change. So when you stand up, make sure the most important alignment is the head. The head's like the engine of a train. Everything else is going to follow it, like the cars. Right in between your ears here is a point called bai hui, like it's the crown of your head. You want that to float up, and your chin might slightly rotate inward. Always have the feeling your head's floating up off of your torso. Your spine always lengthens. Keep your chest relaxed but up. Don't collapse your chest. Keep your chest up and relaxed. Your scapula relaxed in the back. And your shoulders should be very, very relaxed here. Always keep your shoulders down. When you raise your arm, don't let your shoulder come up with it. It'll cut off your arm from your torso, which is your power source. On the other hand, when you do Chi-Na on your opponent, you often want to make him raise his shoulder to cut off his arm from his power source. So you keep your shoulders down and relaxed. Your elbows are always hanging. like there's something heavy on your elbows. Your hands, when you're using your hands, you don't want to put a lot of tension in your hands either. If you tense your hands, they'll tighten up your forearms, which will translate tension into your body. Also, if your hands are stiff, you'll have no feeling. All these techniques are completely dependent upon having feeling. If you have no feeling, you won't be able to change fast enough to apply the technique. So you want to be relaxed, so you bring the power from your body out through your hands and keep your hands relaxed. Keep your hips level. You want to keep your feet more or less under your hips. In Qina, sometimes you might spread your base wide when you're sweeping or throwing, but in general, you're going to keep your feet fairly close together underneath your base. There are not very many low, stable stances of this nature because it's based on mobility. If you're standing like this and you're very stable, you can't follow the guy and move. Qina is based on agility, being able to move to the correct angle. So we're going to stay up fairly high with a slight bend in our knees and hips and keep our feet under our base. So in summary, the most important thing is to keep your head floating up from the crown, away from your torso, keep your spine lengthened, your body relaxed, keep your shoulders down, your elbows heavy, your hands are soft so they're sensitive, and your feet more or less under your hips. You don't want to have too wide of stances. Now let's talk about how you set up the technique. The best technique in the world is useless unless you can set it up. You have the opportunity to apply it. So with Qina techniques, what you want to do is not use force against force. If you use brute force against force, your opponent will tense up and it'll be very hard to apply techniques. So, for example, if Glenn punches me and I stay here and I block right into him, I don't get hit, which is good, but I put him right back into his base, into his feet. He tenses up and now I'm fighting. It's going to be almost impossible for me to apply some kind of a leverage from here. All right? So say Glenn throws like a roundhouse punch. If I stay here and block and try to grab him, he can hit me again and he's very, very stable. What Qina likes to do is get out of the way of his force. It's called moving off the attack line. When Glenn comes in to hit me, his torso is going to be moving towards me. I'm not so much concerned about his hands as much as I am about the flow of his force, which is his whole body coming forward. So if Glenn steps in to hit me, I move off the attack line and let his force go past me. That way I can connect with him without disturbing his force. Okay? If he throws his punch, I might step out and block up. It doesn't matter really how I block, as long as I get out of the way. Now, I can go forward also. I can slip the punch and move forward, but I'm not stopping his force. As soon as I stop his momentum, he goes right back into his feet and tenses up. When you're blocking his arm, you want to connect with his arm. You want to redirect the force and then catch hold. You have to obviously be grabbing someone to do a leverage technique. When Glenn hits me, I don't want to move out of the way and knock his arm away like that either. No, I have to jump in and try to grab him again. I wasted time. Now, if you want to strike him and keep hitting him, it's fine. But if you want to get a hold and do a leverage on him, you have to be able to get a hold. So don't block hard and knock his hand away from you and then reach out for it again. You've wasted time. It also will put him back into his feet. Okay. Redirecting the momentum is what you want to do. So, for example, Glenn steps in to hit me. I move out of the way, and I roll with his arm. I touch and I move with him until he runs out of momentum. Then it's very easy to connect. He's not moving anymore. There's no relative motion here. I just catch hold. Like we said in the last section, don't use a lot of power. Even if I get a good angle, I redirect his momentum, and I grab real tight. Again, now he can resist against me, and we're struggling. So catch hold lightly and hold. You want to lead him from there. You don't want to grab him and try to apply force from the point of contact. So Glenn hits me again, I move out of the way, I redirect his momentum, and I catch hold. Now you can do that. If he throws it again, I could be moving forward and doing that, but that's going to be the general rule. Move your feet and get out of the way, off the attack line, get out of the way of the brunt of his force. When you block, redirect and connect, don't knock his blow away from you. If he's grabbing you, if you're already close and he's grabbing you, the same principle applies more or less. I want to get out of the way of his center and stay away from whatever hand's free. This is his dead hand. This can't do anything to me now. It's just holding me. This is the hand he's going to hit me with, or he might kick me. So again, I view this as if this punch coming, I want to move away from that side and do whatever technique we're going to do. So if someone gets a hold of you, or even with both hands, if you got him with both hands, I can still move to the side and put him in an inferior position and then do my technique. It's important that if someone grabs you, don't immediately grab his hand and try to apply a leverage. It's not going to work from here if his arm's stiff and he's strong. He'll just push me backwards and start hitting me. I'll lose my balance. So the first thing to do, even if you're grabbed, is to get the correct setup. So we're going to be moving off of the attack line, maybe pulling his body out, striking him, and then doing the leverage. So the same principle applies from dead hand Qina when he's touching you, or live hand Qina when he's striking you from a distance. We'll go over this in much greater detail during the techniques. Finally, a word of caution, these techniques are potentially very devastating because you're moving their joints against their natural range of motion. When you're practicing with your partner, always go very slowly. You work out fairly cooperatively at first. When your partner either taps or he verbally lets you know that there's pain, stop immediately. Don't go any farther. Never apply a technique with a snap or a jerk. Once the joint's at the limit of its range of motion, if you snap or jerk it, you can do a lot of damage. Take a long time to heal. It's not necessary for the technique. So be very, very careful. And as soon as your partner signals pain, stop. Most of these techniques are going to go into a takedown or a throw. Always work out on a padded surface like a mat. Don't work out on any kind of hard floor. If you don't know how to do break falls and roll, and I strongly suggest that you learn before you do the takedowns, because some of these falls are very hard. You're often falling with one or both of your limbs tied up, so it's very hard to slap out. So if you don't know how to fall, you can apply the leverage to the point of taking the opponent down, or your partner down, and then stop. Be sure that he knows how to fall. You should warm up your joints before you practice. Do some warm-ups. Make sure your joints are flexible, because most of the techniques are involving the joint. Okay. Be especially careful on neck techniques. Anytime that you're grabbing and twisting your partner's head, be especially careful. Very, very dangerous. And it's very, very hard for your opponent to control his momentum once he's off balance and his head's being twisted. And finally, when you're working out, it's very important that your partner gives you feedback. You don't want to have to try to figure things out. If you do a technique and it's not working, very often your partner will tell you why. They'll say, well, you need a better angle, or I felt like you pushed into me, or whatever the case may be. So ask your partner for feedback as you're training. Thank you. Good luck. This technique is called the cowherd leads the ox, and what it's referring to is I'm the cowherd and my opponent's the ox, and I'm going to lead him forward and over into a throw. This is a Chi-Na technique that's done on the head, so be very, very careful when you pull. How it works is this. I'm going to have Glenn's arm left to left or right to right from the outside. I'm going to reach under here. In the book, he pushes here on a point right above the collarbone called Chiepan, and there are nerves in there that often cause the opponent's legs to buckle. But I'm going to modify it a bit, because if someone's built like Glenn, they have a lot of thick muscle here, it's very, very hard to find that point or get a hold there. So we're going to shoot our hand up and grab behind the base of his skull here like a half Nelson hold. Okay, don't grab low, grab right at the base of his ear so you can pull his head forward. As you're pulling his head forward, you're going to pull this arm straight down. Don't pull his hand into you this way. The opponent will fall on you and you'll be knocked over. So keep this hand going straight down between his legs. Roll this hand this way so that his head goes out and then back under his own crotch. As you do that, once he loses his balance, we're going to slide this right foot in on the toe and then snap our heel down to cause his back leg to flip up backwards. So when you do it all at once, from this position, pull down, out and around and sweep. The opponent will fall right here in front of you. Okay? Alright, let's do that one more time. So pull down. You have a half Nelson position. Pull down. Pull his head and arm first before you sweep. If you try to sweep too early, you'll just knock him backwards. You won't go over. So get this action going first and sweep. Okay? The follow-up is you hang on with your left hand. He falls here. Now you can just drop down and punch the opponent if you want to. If you want to pin him, his elbow is bending this way. I get the back of his elbow above the elbow and the humerus bone right against my shin. And I put my weight on my left foot and I pull his hand around between my legs. It'll cause him to roll over onto his face. I hang on, I step over with my right foot, drop my knee right in the back of his head or his neck, and I pull his hand up with both hands at 45 degrees to his front right, over his head this way, for the pin. Okay. Now, off the punch, when Glenn punches me, again I want to move off the attack line and catch his punch. Go with the punch. I recommend hitting underneath here, this way. If you hit him in the solar plexus, that's what will happen. He'll bend over and it'll set him up for the throw. From here, all you need to do is shoot your hand and right away and tighten this up. Keep this arm pulling down so there's no slack in it. If Glenn can bend his arm up here and tighten it up, I can't do the throw. So after I hit him, I immediately tighten this up, pull down and sweep. He goes down, come up close, pull him around by the elbow, step over here, drop your knee in the back of his neck. For wheel, you're going to put all your weight on your right knee. Pull his arm up and over for the pin. So if Glenn punches me, out of the way, block and catch, solar plexus, pull here, take the slack out, sweep and throw. Get the back of his elbow against your shin, turn him over, step over, drop your weight, pull his arm up. This technique is called the celestial star falls to earth. The star they're referring to is the opponent's head, and you're going to take it down to the ground. This is also a neck twisting China. What you're going to do here is turn his head around 2 axes. So you're not going to turn it left and right, and you're not going to turn it up and down exactly. It's going to go 45 degrees this way, kind of an oblique circle. That immediately locks his neck into his hips, just like any good leverage should. So turning this way, he can turn around and hit you, right, or pulling backwards, he might be able to get out of it. But once you turn it 45 degrees, it locks his head. From here, once we've turned his head, we'll have both hands here. We're just going to keep our elbow on top of him, be very close to him, and sweep and push his head. No fall. Now when you practice, you have to be very, very careful that you don't use any force there. The opponent's neck will always already be at the limit of its rotation. So again, your hand, like a backhand to the forehead here, hold on to his forehead. This is hitting in the chin this way. Turn it 45 degrees here, lock his neck. Make sure this elbow's down. Don't lift this elbow up and give him space to lift his hand to block. Don't stand back here and do it. He'll have space to use his elbow or hit you in the groin. So stand very close to him here. This elbow's down. Move your body around, sweep and push. And he falls. Okay? Off a punch, if Glenn hits me, I move off the attack line and block, and I'm going to hit him immediately, right in the nose. I can chop him in the eye, or maybe hit him with a backhand in the nose. I slide in directly and get a hold of his head and twist it 45 degrees. Turn him, and he goes down. Once more. I step out of the way and hit. Okay? If he blocks with that hand, all I need to do is collapse my elbow and hit straight with my elbow in his eye or his nose, and then go into the technique the same way. So if Glenn hits me and he blocks here, you straight in with the elbow. Catch, twist, throw. Now some possible variations of this are: Glenn hits me, I go out of the way, I hit him, I get him here. I can hold him here. I can even change my grip. I can use my right knee to his back. I can knee him in the kidney. I can use my left knee up into his back, knee him in the kidney or the back of the head. Okay, from there. If he's leaning back, I can sweep this foot out. If I pull here and sweep, he'll go down. Also, when he's twisted here, if I shoot this arm over and step back here, I can choke him in a face-up choke, and then drop him after that. I can also strike with one hand and just let him, and he'll fall. This technique is called leaning on the stars to pluck the moon. It's a head twist, so we're going to twist his head on 2 axes. You're going to have one palm up under his chin and the other palm on the back of his neck here. And what it involves is twisting his head on 2 axes at a 45-degree angle over, not like he's saying no and not straight over, 45 degrees that way, and immediately locks his neck into his center. From here I'm going to step back and keep pulling to drop the opponent. Now be very, very careful when you do this. This is a very dangerous technique. Once you've locked the opponent, try to throw him through his head. Don't just twist his head. Once he's locked here, keep your elbows down and his head in front of you. Don't move your body first and try to pull. Here you have no leverage. So keep it right here and move your body. The body goes down. One other variation of this technique is from exactly the same setup. Twist his head on 2 axes here. You're going to step back instead of with your right foot, you're going to step back with your left foot. So twist his head on 2 axes, you hold it here, he's locked. Hold his head right in front of you here and step back with your left foot. You throw your phone over in front of you this way. Follow him down. So this palm up, this palm on the back, twist and lock, step back with your rear foot, keep his head in front of your chest, keep your elbows down here. Again, don't turn this way first and try to pull, you won't have any power. Hold here, throw. Here. Now, off a punch, if say Glenn hits me, I move back off the attack line, move his hand out, and immediately hit him in the head, set it up. From here, I leave my hand there and I scoot in and take a hold. Okay, I grab a hold. Stretch a little. From here, I can either step this way and twist, or I can block and hit, or I can grab and step up here, get him tight, step back. When the opponent falls here, if you push your open palm here, down and back towards here, it'll choke. It'll be a choke. You can also use both hands. Your 4 fingers can squeeze around his carotid artery. The open part of your hand here pushes at this angle here, backing in. Use your body weight. Notice, I'm not back here trying to squeeze. I get my body weight over his throat and I push back in with my arms straight. Grab, throw. Okay, be very careful with that. 4. Throw. And you can choke. This technique is called the immortal points the way. You want to hold your fingers curved like this and together. Keep them gently curved so that when you hit the opponent, they don't bend backwards and get hurt. Keep them curved. What you're going to do is poke him right in his armpit, right up in here. There's also a nerve plexus here at the top of his ribs there that's very painful. But this technique, we're going to poke up and in to his armpit. Now, there's no muscle or bone cover here, so it's very sensitive. It almost feels like you've been shocked. What it'll do is cause the opponent to lift his shoulder up, disconnecting his arm from his power source, and then I can take his arm in a china and lock it, or I can hit him up high, and once his attention's up here, I can drop down low and do china on his legs. Okay. Off a punch, if Glenn hits me, I slip and cover. This is called sealing the elbow. You don't want to step out to the side here, you'll be too far away to follow up. So as he comes in, I step forward, duck my head, and cover. His arm should go right over my shoulder. At the same time, I poke him in the armpit. It gets this reaction here. Now from here, if I keep my hands on, I can go into an armbar very easily because his arm's disconnected from his body. Or if he hits me again, if I hit in here, his energy's up, I can step in here and take him down to the hip because he's thinking up. So it's a setup for other techniques. So once again, he punches me, slip and hit him right in the armpit. Stab your fingers in. You can take his arm. Okay. Or he hits me, I slip and hit. Make sure your weight's going forward here, not outward, forward as you slip. Once his energy's up here, if I just step in here and push his hip with my body weight, he'll go down. This technique's called turning over the golden oven. The golden oven refers to my opponent. I'm literally going to turn his body over in a somersault. When you throw the opponent, you're going to have him bent over here. You're going to push his neck, his head down and around between his legs. As he starts to go over his toes, you can either grab his belt or just grab under his rear and pull it over. It throws him over in a forward somersault. Okay? So once again, when you're here, pull his head first. Don't try to lift him from here. It would be too heavy. You've got him down here. You want to move him very close to him so he can't use this arm to hit you. You don't stay back here where he has space. Very close. Sink your weight. Push his head down and around between his legs. As he starts to go over, push from his rear and he'll go over this way. Now, off a punch, if Glenn hits me with his left hand, I slip and block across, and I hit him in the kidney or the lower ribs. That'll cause his body to come up this way. Very painful strike. Now I step around with my back foot, toe in, pointing right between his legs. As I do that, this hand's going to hit this way, right in the base of his skull. Put your other one, Glenn. You want to hit, put your head up. Right at the bottom of the ear line here is the base of the skull. If you hit him in there with much force at all, it knocks him out or give him a concussion. So if Glenn punches me, I slip, hit him in the kidney, step this way, palm in the back of his head, and immediately come right in close to him this way so I have a hold. Now as I push his head between his legs, as he falls over, I push him from the rear and he goes over. One more time. So Glenn hits me, slip, hit the kidney, hit the back of the head and pull him tight, push him down, seat over. This technique is called opening the mountain and entering the door. It's a shoulder lock, and what it involves is rotating the opponent's arm outward this way. You want to bend his elbow about 90 degrees so it locks into his shoulder. You can either hold from the below or from above. You're going to back into the opponent and use your shoulder against the back of his shoulder as a fulcrum. Here, you keep your shoulder up and you pull down on his arm. Okay? Or if you grab underneath this way, you roll back and you can pull down the same way. You can't have the arm straight. It needs to be 90 degrees. Your shoulder has to be in position as a fulcrum. Don't squat and do it. There's no leverage. Keep your shoulder up. Pull his arm down. All right? Now, off of a punch, the opponent strikes me. I move off the attack line close. I can hit him here underneath, or I can slap him in the face. And I neatly rotate his arm up, catch on top of his bicep, and I move back into position, kind of like a horse stance. Now, if you want to throw the opponent from here, it's a very, very hard fall. You have him in this position, bend over and pull. Clear over your back. Okay? Very hard fall, so be very careful to try that in your training. Another option is, he hits me, I catch and hit him in the face, and I slap down here and roll my palm up and step right back in. To here. Now I lift my elbow, my right elbow, and pull down with my hands. That also causes the leverage. If you don't want to pull and pull over your back, or step this way a bit. If you don't want to pull and pull over your back because of the angle or whatever reason, just pull your head through, pull straight down. Pause here, okay? Drop in the air and you can pin it momentarily and strike. All right, let's do that variation. So, when hits me, I move out of the way. I hit him here, or I hit him up here, or I hit him up here, okay? In this variation, once again, I'm hitting above, slapping and rotating this way, slapping and rotating. Step, toe in with this foot, then back underneath here. Lift up with my elbow, pull down with my arm for the leverage. Bring it over my head, drop straight down. There. This technique is called rowing the boat against the current. You're going to use the opponent's arm as if it's the oar or paddle of a boat. And it's as if you're rowing it this way. And that's going to cause him to bend forward. When you do this move, you have a straight grab on his wrist. You can get it from the inside if you like, this way. Your other hand hooks over the top of his shoulder, and you hook your 4 fingers on the back of his muscle here. Now, if Glenn tenses his arm up, it's going to be very hard to move it into him. So what you need to do is leave this arm relaxed, drop it down, then up, all right, like you're rowing. So if he tenses his arm, and I pull down first, it becomes very easy to get this position. Now his shoulder's locked, okay? And I have several options. You can use your knees and knee him. Be careful if you knee him in the face, not to knee him in the teeth, he'll cut your leg. So knee him in the side of the head, or in the body. If you step across this way, 45 degrees, then turn, and throw the opponent down. So I grab here, you row it up. Another option is the back of your palms on the back of his hand. Keep contact and keep the slack out here. Wrap your elbow around and squat down. Keep it tight in here. And just walk straight forward. The opponent goes down. Okay? Drop down beside him. In reality, you can drop your knee on his back to get some weight on him. Put his wrist on the outside of your neck. Keep this here on the back of his elbow so his arm doesn't bend. Put your right hand right on the ground by his face here. So this is wrapped around his shoulder. Lean 45 degrees over his head. And it's a very painful shoulder lock, okay? It's good to put some weight on him with your knee. It can be done beside the opponent also, but you get a little extra hold if you get your knee on his back. Alright? Now off a punch, for example, against those kind of a roundhouse or hook punch, I can block in close and hit, and then do it, or if he hits me, I can move back out of the way and hit at him. From here, I go directly into the rowing motion. I can use my knees, or if I want to pin, I wrap my elbow, take him down, drop down with him. In reality, you can drop your knee on him. Hold his elbow here with this hand so it doesn't bend. Put on the side of your neck. Wrap that around and put it flat on the ground with some weight on it so this is solid. Lean up over his head. Okay. So once again, punches. 1, 2, row, wrap, take him down, follow him down. Hand goes on the ground. Lean up over his head for the pin. Okay. This technique is called walking the horse out of its shoes. It's a lock on the shoulder. You need to get the opponent's arm at 90 degrees. You're going to either come from above or below and bend his arm at this angle, pulling up here on his elbow and down on his wrist. This kind of a leverage will take the opponent down backwards. Okay? Now, when you set it up off a blow, you can either, for example, be inside here and slap down and hook, then slide your hand around and do it. Or if you hit the opponent low, you can hook your fingers here and bend it, then shoot up and grab your own wrist. This is a little bit tighter leverage. Here I'm pulling down with my palm and lifting up with my elbow. And I can sweep and take him down. And here if I drop my knee on him, I pull my hand back towards myself and push my elbow forward. And it has a leverage on his shoulder. Okay. For example, if Glenn throws a roundhouse punch, I can move in early and stop him here, hook, spin it around, and just throw him down. If I want to pin him, say the same punch, I might step in early and hit him down low. Hook. Here you grab the top of your own hand, put the leverage on, take him down, follow him down, drop your knee on his body, pull your hand towards you, and push your elbow forward this way. Right. Here, don't keep his forearm below 90 degrees. As you bring it up here, he'll be able to pull his arm out. He'll lose the leverage. So keep this down here a ways where it's strong. Keep your elbows down. Keep this in tight here. Put your weight on him and pull. This technique is called pushing the cart with a single hand. So my opponent is like a cart, and I'm going to use one hand to push him over and take his balance. So I have my hand on my right hand on the top of his left. I need to keep my elbow below his elbow. I lock it here. I'm hooking with my fingers. I'm pulling back with my hand and pushing forward with my elbow, only enough to take the slack out of his arm. So this is locked straight. I keep pulling his arm away from him so it's straight down here. If the opponent pulls his arm up in here, you can't do it. So keep it extended and locked here. Now I step my right foot in behind him and bend my knee to buckle his base. At the same time I lean into him here. Okay? It takes his balance away. Now you can use that as a setup for other techniques. I can take his balance, maybe pull and sweep. Alright? You can take his balance here and then hit him or just push him down. Okay? Another variation is exactly the same setup. Hook here with your fingers. Push your elbow forward to lock his arm. See, it locks into his shoulder. Shift your weight to this foot. Lean in with your shoulders. It's a shoulder stroke to move his weight and step back and beside his leg, and he'll fall back this way. And then you can turn and follow up with a strike. So this variation, hook your fingers, pull back and push your elbow forward to lock his arm. Keep pulling it away. As you do that, start to lean in. Get your shoulders moving in. Sweep his foot. He goes down. All right. Off a punch. If Glenn punches me, move out of the way and just catch his arm. If the opponent extends his arm out, you can just move directly in, take his balance away. Okay? Or, if he hits me again, same thing, if I catch it here, I've extended, I'm in this position already, I can lean in, sweep his leg. Okay. This technique is called Buddha's attendant pounds the pestle. So it involves hammering down and rolling this way with the back of your knuckles on top of the opponent's elbow crook near his lower bicep, this way. Pulls his humerus bone out of his torso and causes him to lean forward. Okay? This one's set up off of a lapel grab. He's got a hold of me here. Like we said at the beginning of the tape, I don't want to stand here and start doing leverage because he's got a good position. He's going to hit me with his other hand. So what I do first is I'm just going to gently kind of trap his hand against me so he can't get it away. Move a little bit out of the way and hit him quickly. I always want to keep this arm in between his live hand and my head. So if he throws a punch and my hand's up here, my hands can block and I can hit him again. So Glenn grabs me, I hit from here. Now I'm going to move my foot back, pull him with me with my torso and hammer right here. Bend him forward. Extend my arm down, so my elbow's down here. Now, don't try to grab under this way. We're going to step up like this and turn. Lift our hand up, put it on his chest. Grab around his chin. Down. Now his right arm is locked in here, he can't move it. Then I can follow up in here, or I can drop my knee, or whatever. So Glenn grabs me. I immediately hit. Step back, hammer, extend my arm down, use your waist to turn, step up, grab around his chin, take him down. He's held here. This technique is called Jotang, shoulders his sword. So I'm going to treat the opponent's arm as if it was a very large sword that I'm going to lift up and put on my shoulder. I have a hold of his wrist from the inside. I'm going to step in first and break his arm, do an arm break. And as I do that, all I want to do is extend his arm out so there's no slack in it. I keep it away from him. I'm going to step in like this and rotate my forearm right behind his elbow here. Okay? So if you hit straight like this, it's a hammer, it might hurt, but it's very hard to actually hyperextend the joint. As I pull back this way, I turn my body and I rotate there. It's easy to hyperextend the elbow or break the arm. So I have his arm here, I step in close, don't hit with your arms, turn your waist, pull your right hand back, your left hand comes forward and rotates. Now from here, keep your arm where it is so he can't bend his elbow. Lift, step back into the opponent, you put his upper arm on your left shoulder, slide your left hand down to grab his wrist, stand up straight, twist his wrist outward and pull down. Okay? It's another elbow lock. From here, it's been broken basically twice. You bring it around your head and just pull down. Clutch. Take your opponent down in front. You still have a hold. You can follow up. Okay? So, I have a hold of his wrist here. I step in and turn my waist, snap my arm there, leave it underneath, step in and slide it onto your shoulder. Immediately slide his hand up. Pull out, stand up, twist his wrist out as you pull down there. Keep your stance, bring it around your head, towards your left hip. Throw the opponent over. Okay. Off a punch, if Glenn hits me, I get off the attack line and catch, and I just step in, break, come underneath, break the elbow, twist out, right? Drop your elbows heavy here. To break, throw them around. This technique is called the wild swan, overturns its body. Your opponent's the wild swan, and you're going to cause him to flip over. Now, there's two ways this technique might go. You may actually flip over, or the opponent may actually just fall on their face, and you can lock him in a shoulder lock. And how it works is, you have left-to-left grab on the inside of the wrist. You want to rotate their arm outward this way as you pull their arm straight. Keep pulling their arm away from their power source here. From here, you reach underneath and cradle the arm with the crook of your elbow. Make sure your arm's behind where the elbow bends. It's not going to work down here. The lever's too short. So get it up here high, cradle it, and reach down towards your own hand. Okay? Now from here, once I have this, I shift my weight to my left foot and use my shoulder to get him to lean forward. Alright? I'm going to snap my leg back to buckle his left leg backwards. As I do that, I'm going to bend like I'm bowing and looking to my left. And the opponent will, if you do this at the right time, the opponent flips over. So, spread your feet a bit. From here, I bow. He goes over in front of me. I still have a hold of his wrist so I can follow up. If you don't do it with that much force, or the opponent slips out, he'll go directly down onto his face. Okay? From here, drop your knee, come straight down, put his wrist on the outside of your neck, hold his elbow so it doesn't bend, put this hand on the floor, lean up over his head at 45 degrees for the pin. Alright? Okay. Off of a punch, if Glenn hits me, I get out of the way, I block, and I hit up to divert his attention. I either use a back fist or I slap at his face, something to take his mind off of his arm. I rotate this out and pull it away from him, and I hook his arm over, cradling it in my elbow crook. Throw from here. Okay? Again, if I do the other variation, exactly the same, from here, and I push him down on his face, drop my knee, put his wrist on my neck, grab his elbow, pin, and lean over his head. All right. This technique is called helping the range to beat down on the injured. It's an elbow and shoulder lock throw. We're going to have his arm left to left, grab the inside, rotate his arm outward, and stretch it away from his center so this slacks out of his arm. Your right arm is going to come underneath this way and rotate. It's going to rotate this way so your elbow rotates outward. That's going to cause a lock on his elbow, which will push into his shoulder. Make sure you get your arm behind his elbow, not below it, up in here on the back of his tricep. Now, as we do this, we keep our body close. This hits back towards his groin. It may or may not hit his groin. If it hits his groin, all the better. It doesn't have to. I shift my weight from here on my left foot. I'm going to bring this in, slide in, and sweep as I rotate and hit down. I want to turn from here and bow and look to my left as I rotate my arm. So when you do that quickly, throws the opponent over. Now from here, hang on to his arm. We go into a pin. It's very, very difficult to pin someone face up. So from here, when you have the opportunity, his hands here, step your right foot in here, very close to his body, slide your left foot back. As you do it, you're going to slap with your right elbow with your right hand behind his elbow and pull him over onto his face. You keep his arms stretched up. He's just fallen. I go 1, 2. He's on his face. Drop. He's on his face. Drop straight down. Put this on the outside of your neck, hold his elbow, put your palm down, lean up over his head. Okay? Now, in any pin like this, you can hang on to the guy and hit him with this hand, or you can just use some pressure and hold and hit with this hand if you have to, or the pin alone will hold him down. So you have his arm, grab on the inside, make sure you rotate his arm out away from him here. If Glenn bends his arm and keeps it tight here, you'll never be able to get any leverage. So you have to keep it twisted out and away, step in, you're going to rotate, sweep, out, here. Step in, back, pull his arm up and over as you scoop his elbow, drop straight down, and pin. Now off a punch, and Glenn hits me, I move off the tackle and hit him down low. Solar plexus or liver or spleen, depending on the side, is a good shot. Starts to bend the opponent over for me already. From right here, I stay close. Keep this by your hip and turn your waist. So after you hit him, don't leave his arm out in space here. Pull it here as you hit him. Keep it there. And a good tight throw. Okay. One more time. This technique is called changing the dipper and moving the stars. It's an arm bar. You're going to catch the opponent's wrist inside your elbow crook here and hold it tight to your body. It's a very strong hold. Again, you're going to turn your body this way and rotate your forearm in behind his elbow, just a little bit behind where his elbow bends. When you rotate this way, it accelerates the force and causes his arm to snap out. So you're not pushing it, you're rotating it this way. It also pulls his humerus out away from his power. When you're doing these kind of breaks, don't use your arms out here. They're not near as powerful as if you use your waist. Okay? Use your waist to snap this way. Now, as we do that, we're going to sweep back into this foot to take his base out. An arm bar, if you get a guy over in an arm bar, you have him however you have him, this feels very, very stable. But if he's still standing over his base and he's strong, he'll just stand up and force his way out of it very easily. Okay? So what you need to do with an arm bar is, if you're not going to take him down immediately, you need to take his base out a little bit and then hold him. You get a good hold here. Now he has no base to stand up from. You can hold a person like this before you take him down. So be aware that even though he's bent completely over and his arm's locked, he can just get up if his base is solid. Off a punch, Glenn throws a straight punch. I slip here. I'm going to punch him straight in the ribs underneath. So as he hits me, I'm going to slip and hit, okay? To stun him. Come up straight and wrap right here. See his arm will slide right down into your arm. Break, okay? As you break, sweep his foot, back, snap your heel down there. You have him. Now, with your left hand, grab your own, roll it over and grab your own right wrist. You're going to scoop this way and roll downward, pulling up with here. It's a very, very painful elbow lock, okay? So Glenn punches me, I slip and cover and punch him in the ribs. I come up and break. I sweep and bend him over, grab my own wrist, pull him down, and from here I can pin from here. This is just painful. Or if I want a better hold, I can go, put it on my neck, my hand here, and do the shoulder pin. Okay. This technique is called the red apricot grows from the wall. It involves an elbow leverage using the opponent's own arm to press behind his other elbow. So you get his arms crossed. You have his arms crossed this way. You're going to pull with your right hand, pull his right arm out, take the slack out of his left arm, then bend it at the elbow, and push it right behind his left elbow here. You need to keep this straight and the underneath arm bent. Pull back with your left hand and push right into its center with your front hand. And it makes an elbow lock right into its center. Okay. The idea here is not to try to break his arm, it's to take the slack out. So the little bit of pressure here locks his elbow and pushes right through his center so he falls. Alright? Now, off a punch, Glenn hits me. If I move back, say, and block, and I hit at his face, this is very common. He blocks up. It's easy for him to block there. I immediately drop my elbow and pull this across, wrap this in tight, and I move my body in so I have him here. Now, if I want to project him away, I can just push him. If I want to throw him down very hard, I hold his hands here, I sweep, slam him on the ground. Okay? Now, you can't slap out of this, so be very careful when you practice. From here, if I want to follow up, I drop my weight on his stomach here, pull his hands across this way, so this slacks out, press with one hand here. Now this isn't going to pin him very long, but it's going to hold him long enough for you to follow up with your hand if you want to hit him. However you want to hit him from here, choke him, punch him, all right? Pulling his hands across, drop my hand on my weight on my knee, and then follow up. It's a very far superior position. So Glenn punches me, I move out of the way and catch, I hit, he blocks, I pull his left arm down, push his right arm up, and I move my body in. Don't do it from back here, he'll be able to pull his arms out from there because you have no weight behind it. So from here I move right up in, get my body close, sweep, thumb on the ground, drop your knee, spread his arms. You can hold with either hand. Hold him for a second, follow up. This technique is called the old pine tree leans over. Your opponent's body is the old pine tree, and you're going to cause him to bend over backwards. What it involves is, I have my right hand holding onto his right wrist from the outside. I'm going to thread my left hand over his elbow, lift his arm, come back underneath and grab my own wrist from here, okay? Now, if his arm's bent, I can use my elbow and hit him and then take him down. Or, if he keeps his arm locked, I come over in a circle, I step behind him, and he just tips over backwards because of the leverage. For follow-up, I drop my knee on his chest. I pull his elbow close to my chest here so he can't move it. And I pull his wrist as if I'm going to take his fingers and touch his own forearm. Pull his wrist up and in from here. Okay, it's painful. And if I need to follow up, I can let go and hit. So I have a right-to-right straight grab. Left hand threads over, lift his arm, grab your own wrist. Okay, you can come straight in, or you can come over in a circle, step past him, drop, weight on him, pull this into your chest, rotate his hand this way, bend his wrist. You have a very tight hold here. If you want to let go, you can let go and you're right on top of him. Now for punch, Glenn throws a straight punch, I move out of the way, block. This is good. Punch him in the eye or punch him in the nose right over the top to straighten him up away from me. I thread my hand through, one, drop him. Okay? Weight on him, pull in here, tighten up on the wrist. Okay? This technique is called the golden dipper rolls over. The dipper here is like a water dipper. It's talking about your opponent's arm. What this technique entails is having his arm a little bit bent. You want to bend him over into an arm bar. Now, if someone makes their arms stiff here and very tight, it's almost impossible to push them over if they're strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our whole body underneath and stand up with our legs to lift their shoulder, push towards their head, and then back. And that'll bend them over into an arm bar. So rather than trying to fight and force up under here, we use our entire body to lift it up and then pull it back down. Okay? When you do this technique in the beginning, to loosen him up, it's an arm break. You have a left-to-left grab on the outside of his wrist. You're going to step in, turn your waist, pull your left back, rotate your arm behind his elbow to speed it up. Use your body, snap his arm, step up with your outside foot, lift your elbow up and push it towards, as if his shoulder's going towards his ear, this way. Now from here, if you want to take him straight down, as you roll, you just sweep his foot, and he'll go down in front of you. Okay? If you get here and the opponent doesn't go down, if you go to his front corner this way, pull a little bit, you fall very hard. All right? So I'm here. I move my body. I break. I lift up towards his head. Sweep. He goes down. Or if he doesn't go down, if he's here, right? Here he still stays fairly solid. His base isn't out. I go towards his front corner, not straight forward, not straight to the side. If I step this way and pull a little bit, he falls hard on his face. Okay. Off a punch, Glenn hits me. I move up and out and catch. Break. Up. Sweep, and he goes down. Now if you want to pinch him here, drop your knee. Foot's on the outside of your neck. Hold his elbow. Hand on the floor. Lean up with your body over his head. All right. If he does it again, if I get here, I break, and he doesn't go down, I move forward this way. Just step and pull. Pull him into the ground, and then you can pin just the same. This technique is called spreading flowers to left and right. I'm going to have my opponent's, put your right foot in front. I'm going to have his body crossed. Say his right foot's in front, I have a hold of his left arm with my left arm. So I pull one arm, I pull his arm one way, and I'm going to sweep his foot the other way. Okay? Once you have an opponent in this position, and you pull this way, he has no balance at all. If you don't trap his foot though, he'll step. He'll just be able to step over. Okay? If you stop his foot from moving here and pull, he'll fall down. So in this technique, when he has his right foot forward and I have his left arm, I'm going to grab his elbow and get a little bit of leverage on his elbow this way, so it pushes his shoulder. At the same time, I'm just going to kind of trap and sweep his foot, and he'll fall. All right. Off a punch, when he hits me, I move back out of the way and catch, and I hit him in the face. This is the perfect setup for this. From here, I just go directly in, throw him down. All right. So once again, goes a straight punch. I move back and catch, right to right, pull down, get right over the top. Immediately pull this way in. Don't let him get his arm back. As soon as he blocks, get his elbow and twist it over so it pushes his shoulder into his center there. This alone will take a guy down if it's hard. Okay. So right punch, I move back and block, hit, move in, sweep, and it's a hard fall. Okay. This technique is called lifting the spear to strike the tiger. Your opponent's own arm is the spear, and you're going to lift it up and strike towards him. He's the tiger. So this is you're going to have a finger, elbow, and shoulder lock here. So I have him as if you're shaking hands, but I get around his fingers, farther down his lever here. You want to grab down where you have a good grip on his fingers. Pull his hand away from him, lift it up. Now here, your left hand comes under his elbow and keeps it from bending, right? You want to kind of pull it out and then lift. As you lift, you come back into him like his shoulders, you're stabbing his arm this way like it's a spear, and bend his fingers this way. So you have leverage here. If you don't use his hand here, he'll be able to move and drop his elbow. So when he's here, you need to hold this up into him. Move back into him this way, slide this down, you can break his arm, and from here, you can bring him around and take him down by his fingers. Alright, so I have a hold of his fingers. Don't go straight in this way, he'll tighten up his arm here, and you won't be able to do anything. Pull it away, and get the bend starting here, so it takes some of the power out of his hand. Away, lift his elbow, push it up here. Leverage his arm. He's under here, don't let his elbow go at any time, he'll bend it away. So keep the leverage under here, see my elbow's down, I have my body lifting from underneath here. Move in, slide down, pull down and twist to break. From here, lift up, around your head, there. You still have the leverage on his fingers. This technique is called pushing the clouds and rolling the fog. It's a variation of an outside wrist leverage. This kind, bending his wrist out at 45 degrees. So not just rotating and not just bending. It goes 45 degrees at this angle to lock into his center. When you do this kind of leverage, you have to make sure his arm is pulled away from his body here. Here, it's locked into his center. This will take him down. All right? If you get too close and you let his elbow bend, you get in here, it hurts his wrist, but he's not locked. He can do anything he wants. He can hit me or grab me or do whatever. So as you do these leverages, make sure you keep his arm pulled away from him and then rotate at 45 degrees. You'll feel the lock into here. All right, this one's a little bit different. We're going to use our right hand on the back of his right hand here, below the wrist, not on the wrist, it won't bend. Grab him on the back of the hand, this way, so it bends. Your left hand grabs the back of his wrist here, below his wrist on his forearm. Now from here, what you're going to do is step back with your left foot and turn your body as if you're going to elbow him in the nose. Okay? Keep pulling this away and just twist. Throws him down. All right? Okay. So right hand on the back of his hand, left hand grabs his wrist. Keep him close to here. Don't back up and then pull. You'll lose your power. Keep it in here, elbows down. Move your foot and pull him with your body this way. As I move back, I turn to the left and my right elbow goes towards his nose. Okay. Now off a punch, Glenn hits me, I move off the attack line and I catch and hit it in his face, okay? I hit it to either stun him or he can block, it doesn't matter. I want to get him stretching away from me so his arm's stretched out. I want him to go backwards. From here, all I do is slide my hand on the grab, right? Shift back and turn. And he goes right down. One more time. So right straight punch, I move back, catch, hit, grab, and throw.